The Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver core is changing, and it's going to be for the better once they get up and going. Who's going to be in the lead, and who could come back and really help this team out today on Locked On Chiefs?
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, Chiefs Kingdom around the world. Nice to see you. It is going to be a Wednesday. We have Matt Derrick here from ChiefsDigest.com, our beat reporter on the inside, giving you what he knows of this organization that has always got something going on, evidently a little bit of news as well today. We're brought to you by Gametime. That's where you can get into it. The Gametime app, use that code LOCKEDONNFL to get your first $20 off your first purchase, and that's last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Whether you're trying to get to this next ball game or the one after that or the one in December, there's plenty of options there. Lot to talk about when it comes to wide receiver groups, some emerging rookies, some guys having some struggles, some guys coming back from injury. What does that do, and how does that affect the offense's future in terms of what they can continue to output now as we see other offenses start to struggle across the league, particularly in the AFC? I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, NFL33.com, as well as RGR Football. We appreciate you making us your first listen here on Locked On. It is a sports network. We are here 5 days a week plus for you guys, whether it's here on YouTube where you can like, sub, and hit the bell, or whether it's over on the audio platforms and Spotify and Apple and all of those. You can get them anywhere and everywhere that you like, and you can get on the text line at 816-357-8781. We will include information from Chiefs Digest because that's our go-to source for the inside information, Matt. This wide receiver group has been much maligned. It's been up and down. We'll talk about the news of the week here in a minute, but the emergence of Rashee Rice, I feel like, has now been legitimized, and it has to be something I think they double down on going forward, whether it's against the Broncos or the next ball game where you're going to have some firepower. Do you agree that they continue to feed Rice as though he's the number one option?
Right now, I mean, he's making a compelling case to do that. Outside Travis Kelce, he is the number one receiver on this team. Over the last really month, he's been on pace to be an 800-yard receiver. Over the last couple of games, it's been a 1,000-yard receiver that he's on pace to be, and that's remarkable area for a rookie receiver to be in an Andy Reid offense. I've said this before, I'll say it again. Even going back to his Philly days, he's never had a rookie receiver go over 1,000 yards. Deshaun Jackson was the closest, but even he didn't do it. So being in this kind of atmosphere this early, 7 games into his NFL career is a great place for Rice to be. There's no reason not to feel pretty optimistic. And I think we also finally saw on Sunday a little bit of that open field after the catch ability that Brett Veach raved about and was one of the reasons why the Chiefs drafted him. That ability to run like a running back after he's got the football. We finally saw a little bit of that, Sunday, and he seems to be getting better in all aspects. So, yeah, to me, this is a absolutely give Rashee Rice as much work and as many targets as you can and see what you got right now.
That's where I'm at as well. And it harkens back a little bit to the physicality that I'm always looking for in the wide receiver group. Back from the year when no wide receiver caught a touchdown for a season, you got to get back to being able to hit somebody at the end of the day. And Rice certainly brings that. Watson may be able to get back this year as well. And I think he brings an aspect of that, honestly, very well as well. But I'm searching for somebody else. I think what we saw over this last ball game was not only a couple of nice catches from Sky Moore, but a willingness to block as well. And I think that's something that's been kind of ebbing and flowing through the Chiefs wide receiver core for a few years, but he seems to be the epitome of it right now. And if you can't get into the ball game, if you're not getting open or you're not getting the ball on targets, make your presence felt in the blocking game. And I think that's something that everybody needs to raise their level of play if this group is going to take the next step forward with or without Watson.
Yeah. And, and one thing circling back with Rice and everything that to me, we like to always compare receivers to other players and everything. So it's, this is the guy's the new Tyreek, or who's the new Jeremy Maclin, whatever it may be. I don't want to put these expectations on them. And I do mean this in a positive way. But to me, Rice has got a lot of Sammy Watkins and Juju Smith-Schuster in him. And that's, I think, a fair comparison. Especially as a rookie for this year. If Rashee Rice gave you what Juju gave you last year, 900 plus yards, you would absolutely take that to the bank. And remember, the Chiefs offense was at its best when it had guys like that, when it had Tyreek, also had Sammy Watkins and had Kareem Hunt. I mean, it's not just one piece. You really need all three of them, and then throw in Travis Kelce. So if you got those kind of pieces, well, I'll tell you what, Rashee Rice is looking like one of those pieces. Who can be Tyreek? Well, nobody's going to be Tyreek. But can some combination of McCole and Kadarius Toney, start to give you that a little bit? Yeah. Is Isaiah Pacheco going to be Kareem Hunt? No, probably not. But I tell you what, Pacheco and McKinnon will give you a reasonable, 80, 90% of what maybe he was there in 17 and 18. I mean, that's why I'm pretty optimistic and bullish about this offense in the second half of the season, that if they do stay healthy, that, this offense has a much higher ceiling ahead of it than what we've seen right now.
And I do want to talk about what else I'd like to see in the offense, as well as the trade deadline coming up in the next segment. But the news of the day is obviously the off-field problem with Justyn Ross. A lot of folks concerned about that. And as of this afternoon, as we're recording this, we are live for you folks on YouTube. If you'd like to come over, or if you're hearing this on audio replay, you can always subscribe to the channel so you get notified when we are live. And to this point, we understand there's a couple of charges. We don't know the specifics or the details here yet. I expect discipline to be coming not only from the Chiefs, but from the league as well. And the bottom line is, not at practice, not able to be available, isn't going to be available this week. I can't see any way that happens. Maybe I'm wrong. You tell me if I'm crazy. But for the folks that are just talking about ball, I don't see it as a giant drawback. This is not somebody who's been contributing to the offense consistently and has honestly been given a lot of opportunities to find his way within the offense, and hasn't been someone been relied on. I don't think this makes anything that skips a beat for the Kansas City Chiefs offense. Do you?
Yeah, I mean, and let's separate two conversations. Let's talk about football, and we can talk about the off-field stuff. From a football standpoint, no, it doesn't change anything. I mean, Justyn Ross has played 81 snaps. He's gotten a handful of targets. He did get a little bit more work this week, and despite hopes, I know that some fans have that this is a sign of him getting more snaps. I mean, it's really more about each week about whether there's a package designed for him, that they feel like there's this opportunity where they can get his body on the field and take advantage. But, what I've said all along, from a football standpoint about Justyn Ross is that he's a work in progress. This is not a fully formed receiver. Rashee Rice is light years ahead of development of Justyn Ross. And, hey, I get people say, hey, well, he had a first round talent before the injuries. Well, the injuries were there, and they existed. They still are there. So there's, and maybe still an issue because he lost a lot of football time, setting back. He's had 3 surgeries, at least, 1 on the back, 2 on the foot. I mean, people will tell you he's not as fast as he used to be, and he's got great size. I mean, and there's incredible athleticism, but until you translate it into knowing the offense and having all of your P's and Q's, especially in an Andy Reid offense, it's hard to get on the field. And so that's why I say, hey, I don't know that the Chiefs ever did Justyn Ross a lot of favors with so many of the highlight plays that they put out there, because the highlights were spectacular. But you know what? You needed to see the other 98% of the snaps at camp, because that would tell you he's a work in progress, and he still is. And so that's why I say, from a football standpoint, the Chiefs might have had some hopes that maybe late in the season he could have had, kind of a Jody Fortson type influence in the red zone, as being just a big body that they can put out there in certain situations. But, he was still not quite there yet.
Yeah. And we won't make any determinations till the Chiefs do, but it looks like that progress is going to be slowed even more at this point. But what could help the offense progress? There's a couple of options. There's a trade deadline coming. We're going to talk about that, as well as the defense coming up after this. But I right now am starting to eye when I want to be in the stadium next, and that is leaning towards December at this point. So I'm not last minute yet, but every week that goes by, it makes it harder and harder to get tickets in Arrowhead. If you want to get in the action, if you make a late decision to go to a ball game, or you're planning ahead and you want to know exactly where you're going to be sitting, you need to go check out Gametime, because they let you do everything on their app. You can see your seat before you purchase it. You can get last minute tickets. You can get flash deals, zone deals within an area of the stadium, and it makes life easy, especially when you have an event cancellation policy that helps you, a guaranteed load price that is going to give you 110% back of the difference if you find that ticket cheaper anywhere. It's easy, and you can buy tickets in like 3 taps and you're out the door. All that and all the all-in prices without the hidden fees, it makes Gametime the place that you need to go to get your tickets. And right now, there are all over. It's not just football games. It's for concerts and, some entertainer that might be in town or might be spending time in town. You never know. You could get tickets to shows and things like that as well. So download the Gametime app now, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONNFL. That'll get you $20 off your first purchase on whatever those tickets happen to be. Terms do apply. But go get the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. It's last-minute tickets, it's lowest prices, and it is guaranteed. That's more than I can say so about most things that I get on a daily basis, Matt. And the offense is one of them. We all know about who's going to lead this offense in receptions and targets, etc. It's always going to be Travis Kelce, as we saw last week, and it's always going to be who's next. But in the run game, I've been really happy with the fact that even when they have to pull away from the run a little bit, they're still getting a minimum volume. I think it was 13 carries last week for Isaiah Pacheco. Wasn't a whole lot of mixture. And I do think that that's one thing that if they can continue to maintain balance, that can help this offense down the stretch, especially if you're waiting on Watson to return or you're still jumbling around. Are all the weapons on this roster enough? Or do you think that there should be some open discussions about what could be available at the trade deadline if somebody gets cut at the running back position or the tight end position? Is this something that Brett Veach might be looking to still add something to this offense?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things obviously to always consider, when you get to the trade deadline. And obviously the biggest one is going to be the salary cap and what kind of room did the Chiefs have. Right now they have a little over, according to the NFLPA, I believe it's a little over $3 million, 3.2, let's see, today's report has them at 3.2, almost 3.3 million. So it's not a ton of space. So that limits you a little bit because can you squeeze in a Hollywood Brown under that cap number? No, that's not going to happen. I hate to throw out the name, but could a DeAndre Hopkins fit under the cap number? Well, with the deal he's got with the Titans, yes. But
oh yeah,
can the Titans, one, move him? I mean, are they interested? And two, I mean, how much will it cost from a draft standpoint? And that's the second equation, is how much the Chiefs are willing to pay. The Titans spent a lot of cap money on Hopkins, so for the future. So I think that they would probably like to have a little bit of that back. So it might cost you a little bit more. I mean, Cole Harden was incredibly cheap. I mean, that only cost you draft slots, not even picks, just slots. And if you can get some deals like that, yes. Now, position-wise, I always say it's difficult to come in on offense, but could the Chiefs be looking for another swing tackle? Yeah, I mean, right now it looks like Wanye is maybe in that spot. Are you comfortable with the rookie and Lucas Niang being your tackles the rest of the way? I think they probably are, but if a cheap option came available, Chiefs might consider it. They've done it before. Prince Tega, came in, late season edition and everything when he was younger. So it's always possible. I still think receiver, unless it's a veteran that can really come in and pick things up quickly, isn't going to add much to this team. Running back might be more interesting because that is a position that I think, at least in the Chiefs offense, you can come in and do some things pretty easily. And I don't think the Chiefs are ever going to say they have enough running backs. I mean, they've been fortunate so far to not have any injuries, but how many years have we seen the Chiefs go down to third, fourth on the depth chart? So that's a spot where I think that they're always going to look. Defensively, again, I mean, they're pretty deep across the board. So I don't know that that's necessarily a position of need. I mean, certainly I don't think corner, safety, any of that. I mean, if you're really concerned about Nick Bolton, I mean, maybe you're looking at that, but once again, I mean, you're talking about that being a Mike linebacker coming in. I mean, if anything happened to Drew Tranquil, you're probably still going with one of the guys that's on your roster now than a newcomer. So the only other position I would really say would intrigue me would be tight end, because I think that's a position that the Chiefs always need to invest in when you've got 34-year-old Travis Kelce with the injuries that he's had. Knock on wood, you kind of need some Travis Kelce insurance, and I'm still not sure if the Chiefs have it. I mean, if there's somebody, not to say guy in Atlanta's available or anything, but if there's some player like that, then yeah, if I'm Brett Veach, I get interested in a hurry. But it's who's available, what the price is, can you fit them under the cap? Those are all questions that have to be answered.
I agree with you completely. And I like your point about Travis in particular. We'll talk about the defense on the backside of this next break, folks. But for the offense in particular, it's not just about potential injury to him. It's about letting him recover with a lighter load now with his injuries that he already has, and being what I think is a support mechanism, not necessarily a replacement or somebody, in case of, but can you pepper someone else in? I think what we've seen from Noah Gray is that he makes some plays at times. Blake Bell will make a play or two at times, but clearly has had an ineffectual run as of late. And I think, again, Jody Fortson's injury early in camp led to this situation where you don't have that support for Travis. And as he gets older, I think he needs that more and more and more. I agree with you. I would be looking for that. And certainly the kid Pitts in Atlanta would be top of the list, sure. But there are other, I think, in that support role, guys that could fulfill that obligation and help Travis sustain through the postseason. So that's what I would be looking at as well. One position that I don't think that they have to go to, but I wouldn't be surprised because there are a lot of receivers out there, but it is kind of that gadget type. But personally, Matt, I feel like between Kadarius Toney and now with Mecole Hardman's return, you have the jet action, you can do the pop passes, a lot of the gadget type plays, they have covered in spades on this roster. So I don't see a player like that coming on to the Chiefs roster currently. Do you?
No, I really can't. I mean, and if we're talking about, what does this team really lack in the receiver group, and you could certainly say that with questions around Justyn Ross now, maybe it's that, big body jump ball kind of player. I mean, because Jody Fortson was one of those guys. Ross could conceivably be one of those guys. I mean, do you have the kind of 6'4" body that's not Travis Kelce that can, body up against somebody and elevate and make a play, in the red zone? I mean, you really don't. I mean, certainly not in the receiver room. Your tight ends, behind Travis Kelce. I mean, Gray's 6'3". I mean, you kind of would, that's just one of the knocks against him. I mean, you'd like to have a bigger target in some places. That's one thing that's always, I think, going to be on the Chiefs' wish list until they get one. Rashee Rice is only 6'1", so I mean, even though he's got a long body, he's not quite that either. You look around the league and you look at the big offenses, and almost all of them have at least one, if not more, of these 6'4" plus receivers that can just go up and make a play and elevate and be the only one that can make the play. I know Mahomes can put the ball there for that kind of receiver, but you just need the receiver.
Yeah, it is a tight fit, and you have to have that potential to go make an impact. I want to talk about potential. We're going to get to the defense and where this stands right after this. But, right now, whether I'm trying to fill this roster spot or you are, there's a lot that you can do. And if you guys helps if I'm talking into the microphone, because these days the potential is what that hire is all about. The best candidates that you need. It's high stakes wager for a small business like mine. Whether you want to be 100% certain or you just want something new, you can find them at LinkedIn Jobs. And right now, they help you find the right people for the right position faster and for free. That's why you can just sign up, post your job. The hiring frame goes around your personal profile and is allowing you to then echo out through the LinkedIn stratosphere that you are looking for some skilled help. That goes a long way. The screening questions, the simple tools that they have to help you then sort them goes a long way. That's why businesses have LinkedIn Jobs, the number one position in delivering those quality hires versus the leading competitors. So just go sign up. It's LinkedIn Jobs. You can post your post for free. You'll find the candidates that you want to talk to faster, and that makes the world go around. It's over at LinkedIn Jobs, LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNFL. That's LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNFL. You can post your job for free. Conditions do apply, unfortunately, and that is the case for everything, including if you want to get in the action, you can get over to what is the easiest way to play daily fantasy sports, and that is PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNFL. It's the biggest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. It makes it the easiest to play the DFS that you want. Super, super simple. It's just a more or less proposition. You pick 2 to 6 players. On your entry, you can win up to 25 times the money that you put on the line. It is just Mahomes at 300, or in case of last week, 426 yards, plus or minus. Do you take the more or the less? You do that for 4 to 6 players, and you get into the action. Personally, this week, I'm going to go below the 400 threshold. We'll see what the line comes out at, but that is going to be the process. It's super simple. It's all on the app. You can get it done in just 60 seconds, and it makes your ability to get on with your day. And they have a great deal for you right now. So go to PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNFL When you use that code Locked On NFL for your first deposit, you can match up to $100. So you put in 100, they add 100 for you. It's super simple, and it's only at prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL with our code LockedOnNFL. Get in there and get in the action. It's daily fantasy sports made easy. Now, easy is the name of the game, Matt, especially when it comes to this defense, because I think they're queued up to this point where you just got to let them loose. How good can this defense be? That's the big question. There's one limit, and we'll talk about here in a minute. But I think the addition of Charles Omenihu and the day that he had, we talked about it post-game live. But on reflection, I think the expansion of what is capable, particularly for the front with Joe Cullen, what he wants to do, you can line up a traditional four-man. You can go into a bear if you want because you have the bodies to do it now. Obviously, the departure to Condre Coburn is a problem for me. We'll talk about that at a later date. But you can go into a NASCAR. You can drop players down in the overhang like Leo Chanel and Willie Gay. I think the options that Omenihu's return has shown us just in one ball game is that they are numerous. And I think that makes this defense that much more difficult to defend. And I think that pushes them into the top 10 by the end of the season. Where are you at?
Yeah, I mean, to me, the real difference, and what was the best defense that the Chiefs have had under Steve Spagnuolo during the Mahomes era? I mean, you could probably debate between 19 and 20. I know statistically, I think that because of just the strength of the second half of the season, 19 was technically a little bit better. I know 19's 14 and 2 year. I mean, it was, but that was probably a little bit more offensive driven and COVID driven. But let's look at 2019. I mean, what was the strength of that team? I mean, a lot of it was its flexibility and ability to match up in different ways. But a lot of that was driven by Kendall Fuller and Tyrann Mathieu, being able to put those two guys on opposite sides of the field and either have one on the line, one in the box, one in the backfield. I mean, you could put those guys in any different position. You could blitz from any different position. And offenses really didn't know left or right. This team has that, and then multiple dimensions, because if you're an offense preparing to go up against this Chiefs defense, which package do you think that the Chiefs are going to go with, that week? What's going to be their predominant look? They can go base with the three linebackers. They can switch it up, with when fully healthy, and that's where, the Nick Bolton injury is going to come in. It deprives them a little bit of being able to bring in Drew Tranquil and have him in for either Leo or Willie and go with a different look there. But between Jalen Watson, Joshua Williams, Shamari Connor, even Mike Edwards, you've got four different players that you can bring in their nickel and dime substitution packages that give you a completely different look every single time. And, because you can blitz with almost any of those guys. You can put almost any of them in the backfield. You can, several of them can line up in the box. You can move them left to right. You can move them into the slot. I mean, there's so much that you can do with those guys. So, if you're trying to isolate a matchup on a particular defensive back, it's hard to do. I mean, especially when you got L'Jarius Sneed, that they are absolutely more than happy to travel and lock down in your number one guy. As an offense now, when you don't know which, nickelback, dime back you're going to be facing every single week, and how it changes how you want to attack. And I mean, that's why I say that this defense its flexibility and ability to be multiple is so much more than it has been in the past. And then we haven't even talked about the part where, you get your front four back in full strength. And those guys are also multiple and flexible. And we saw elements of it, but going back to training camp, Chiefs were absolutely so excited about that front four with Chris Jones and George Karlaftis outside and Omenihu and Dana on the inside in passing situations. We saw a little bit of it on Sunday, and it was effective in the few snaps that we saw it. But they're just gonna, if you've got a second and long, third and long, for sure, you're gonna see those four guys coming at you every single time, and they're gonna get pressure.
Agreed. And I think that's probably the most exciting part. The most nerve-wracking for me is the opposite. We saw giving up some run plays, one in particular. The Dolphins are not only an explosive pass offense, they're an explosive run offense with a ton of speed, where if you give them a crease and you let somebody get to the second level, that's an issue because you may not get all the way back to them. So my one concern right now is the second level. I think Drew Tranquil's played well in relief of Nick Bolton so far this season. I do think as the season goes on, it is now the run fits that concern me. But I'm comfortable with Leo Chanel playing inside let alone what he's been doing outside. I would think that the natural progression, should something happen to Drew Tranquill, is that Leo Chenal would take over the green dot, be in the middle of the defense, and then you're talking about having a younger player, either Jack Cochran, Cam Jones, maybe a combination, come in and try to play those in the base at least, those Will type roles, so that Willie can go back to Sam, and you're probably going to end up in nickel a lot more, which again hurts you against the run. But A, is that how you see it? And B, if not, what would be the alternative?
Yeah, it's really hard to, because I've been thinking about what the Chiefs would do if, knock on wood, they were to lose Drew Tranquill and be down to a third Mike linebacker. And on paper, I mean, yes, it's probably either Leo or Jack Cochran. Based on what we have at least seen and the portions of practice open to public going back to training camp, I'd probably say Cochran would be the guy that they plugged in there. Leo was always drafted with the possibility that he could be a backup at Mike linebacker. I'm not sure how much of that is really that they feel like that Cochran is just a better game caller, and as far as giving the signals and making the reads, if they feel like that he's superior at that, or it's just that they don't want to lose Leo on the outside. But that seems to be the direction. I mean, I think either one of those guys could do it, but it wouldn't surprise me if it were Cochran. But with you losing Bolton, you lose something and you gain something. I mean, you're right. From a run standpoint, I mean, I think that's the one thing that you definitely lose with Bolton. He's more physical. He's more athletic. There's a lot of things in tackling that he can do that Tranquill just aren't his strong suits. Now, Tranquill, I think, is a better, cover in pass situations. So, that's going to help you a little bit in the middle of the field. I think they're both pretty good blitzers. We saw Drew Tranquill on the blitz, and once again, I mean, that was just a heady play, the way that he ran it. He disguised it pretty well. It was great delayed blitz, great call, and great execution. I mean, he's a smart guy, so you're not going to have a huge drop off from that standpoint. We saw it in the 3 games without Nick earlier that Drew can handle that. So that doesn't worry me at all. And honestly, I mean, Joshua Kelly's 49-yard touchdown, looking at the first 7 weeks of the season, it's almost an outlier. That the Chiefs hadn't allowed a touchdown longer than 11 yards all season until that play. And really, I mean, the only other really long run play that I can think of is Breece Hall. And, once again, they got him on the ground. So, to me, hey, every run team, every defense is going to give up a big run play eventually. I don't think that this team has huge problems. And, and part of it's that they got some guys like Derek Notty's been playing the run really, really well this year. There might be, let's see if there's going to be some holes that open up. The one caveat I have with the Chiefs defense is that it has been much better than we expected early. So is the question, has this defense peaked? Is this just as good as it can get? And once teams have seen it and they get it on film more and they pick at it, are they going to figure out some ways to beat it? I mean, that is literally my only concern at this point, because this defense it looks for real. It absolutely does.
I agree with you, and I think one of the keys to this season has been the aggression from the second level, again with the linebackers, in filling in for some of what we've seen over the years in the nickel blitzes and the outside corner blitzes. By replacing those and still having 5 guys to attack the quarterback, I think that's important. But going forward, because of these changes at linebacker, do you anticipate, like we talked about in the previous segment, with the trade deadline coming, is this something, should they be looking for another starting level linebacker right now? Even if there's any to be out there to be had or not, should the search be on?
Yeah, it's probably one of those short-term, long-term kind of conversations that they would have to have, because remember, right now the Chiefs are carrying a lot of linebackers on the active roster. They go down to Cam Jones and Jack Cochran too, so they got 6 linebackers as it is. And with Cochran and Jones, they really like those 2 guys. And honestly, they brought in Isaiah Moore back onto the practice squad, and he and Cam Jones were really neck and neck as far as, snaps go and looks go during training camp. They were pleased with both of those guys, another undrafted free agent. So, I think for the long term, they want to stick with the investment in those young players because they feel like they've got something that they can develop into and they're learning things. So is there a veteran that can come in and help them? I don't know that they're really looking for it. If the right offer comes along, maybe they think about it. But I think that's, to me, one of those things that I think they're willing, that even if, if in the next 7 days that they had an injury pop up, I think they'd still favor the youth and go and protecting the future rather than bringing in somebody right now and having to risk losing one of these young guys.
Yeah, I have to agree. And, you bring up a good topic. Chamar Connor, a guy that got probably 10, 12 snaps a game for the first 4 or 5 weeks, has been noticeably absent on defense of late. Is that another player that can come down and man that nickel safety thing that allows you to maybe get away and start blitzing back from the DBs rather than the linebackers?
Yeah, I mean, Connor to me, I mean, that fits in back to, you don't know what the Chiefs are going to do week to week, and there's probably three of those guys as far as Connor, Williams, and Watson fit into that. I think it's not only a little bit of going with the hot hand, who they think is playing the best at that particular moment, but I also think it's who they think matches up best against the opponent. Because there have been some weeks where we've seen a lot of Chamari Connor, and then we don't see a lot of, one of the nickel corners. So I think that's a big part of it, and probably in some teams that they feel like that maybe they need some run support and they need to be a little physical. Maybe you're going to see Connor. If it's a team that's going to be a little bit more wide open throwing the football, you're probably going to see one of the cornerbacks as their nickel guy. But that just stems back to, once again, I mean, their ability to be versatile and multiple. They've got different directions that they can go rather than just, one option.
I think that is really what Steve Spagnuolo is looking for, and certainly is something that I enjoy. We'll see who gets this playing time, and if anything does come of it as the trade deadline does approach, folks, we'll have updates for you. Same thing with anything on the Ross situation. Thank you for tuning in with us. Make sure that you're here for tomorrow because we're going behind enemy lines with the Denver Broncos. We'll see if anything has changed in the last couple of weeks. It's a very short turnaround for that ball game. And then we'll be previewing the game on Friday. Don't miss that. But Matt, thank you for giving us your thoughts and your insight from inside the organization. Very much appreciated today.
As always, Ryan, and I appreciate all the support for the Chiefs Digest YouTube channel, all the Locked On Chiefs fans and all the RGR fans coming over and leaving notes. I always appreciate it. So, yeah, feel free if you jump over and subscribe, leave me a note. I will definitely respond.
That's awesome. And thank you guys for doing that and supporting Chiefs Kingdom all the way around. We appreciate your time. Thanks for being with us today. We'll be back tomorrow and the next day getting ready for those Denver Broncos. Have a great day today, and we'll talk to you then.